We hadn't planned this stop, but with Sloss closed and time to kill after visiting the old grist mill, Dusty and I pointed the truck toward Tannehill Historic State Park, not really knowing what we'd find. Honestly, I figured it might just be a quiet park, some hiking trails, a picnic spot. But state parks always seem to have surprises for us. Instead, we stumbled into an entire preserved world. Log cabins, a museum, an old schoolhouse, a church, a cemetery, and 3 towering stone furnaces that once forged the Confederacy's weapons of war. Tannehill wasn't just another park. It was a hidden chapter of Civil War history, layered with both innovation and dark secrets. So let's walk this road together, from the rise of Tannehill as an industrial powerhouse to the stories, both true and whispered, that still linger among the stones. At first glance, the furnaces look like mossy monuments, stone giants frozen in place, but in their day, this valley roared with fire. To really understand Tannehill, you have to understand the war it was born from. The Civil War wasn't just fought with rifles and cannons. It was fought with factories, foundries, and iron. The South had little industry to speak of, but what it did have, it leaned on hard. And here, in Alabama's secluded Roops Valley, the conditions were perfect. Iron ore in the hills, endless forests for charcoal, and water to power the works. Enter Moses Stroop, an iron master who sets his sights on this land. Between 1859 and 1863, 3 massive blast furnaces rose from the valley floor. They were cutting edge for their day, steam engines and hot blast stoves pushing them to crank out up to 22 tons of pig iron a day. That iron rolled straight to the Selma Naval Gun Works and Arsenal, where it became the Confederacy's cannons and rifles. For a few short years, this quiet valley became one of the beating hearts of the Southern war machine. But here's the harder truth. This machine didn't run on iron alone. It ran on people. Hundreds of them. Miners digging ore, colliers tending smoky charcoal pits, furnace men working through nights lit by molten fire, and a huge part of that workforce were enslaved men. They cut the sandstone blocks, hauled them into place, and built the very furnaces that still stand here. They labored in heat, danger, and darkness with no choice in the matter. When Dusty and I stepped into the little log church on site, she paused in the silence and whispered, "Can you imagine the lives that lived here?" And she was right. The real story isn't just in these stone stacks, but in the hands and lives that fed them. That's the sobering part of walking through Tannehill. You can't separate the industry from the human cost. By 1865, the Confederacy was unraveling. Union George James H. Wilson launched the largest cavalry raid of the war, determined to wipe out Southern industry. One detachment, about 1,500 men, rode into Roop's Valley. By the time they arrived on March 31st, the furnaces had gone quiet. Workers had likely scattered into the hills. The soldiers weren't here for a fight. They were here to erase Tannehill. They smashed the furnaces, destroyed the steam engine, and torched the bridges, casting houses and warehouses. In just hours, what had been one of the South's strongest engines of war was reduced to smoke and rubble. Standing here today with only birdsong in the trees, it's hard to imagine the valley choking on that much fire and ash. But history says it happened, and the silence that followed has lasted more than 150 years. Hey, listen, if stories like this pull you in the way they do me, hit that like button and subscribe. Dusty and I have so many more hidden places and forgotten histories to explore, and your support keeps the adventure rolling. Places like this, where labor was brutal, war was close, and endings were violent, almost always collect ghost stories, and Tannehill has its share. The most famous is the legend of Ism Hardy, an enslaved worker said to have leapt into the blazing furnace after being accused of theft. It's a horrifying tale. But here's the thing, no records prove it happened. It's folklore, passed down as a way of explaining the weight people still felt here long after the fires died. There are whispers of others too. Jeb said to have been killed by Union soldiers, a little girl singing Ring Around the Rosie near one of the cabins. But whether these are true hauntings or just echoes of a community trying to make sense of its past, who can say? Maybe the most haunting thing at Tannehill isn't the ghost stories at all. It's the very real history carved into every stone. For us, the visit wasn't just about the furnaces. When we first parked, we stopped at the historic signs to get our bearings, then wandered the old log cabins along the main road. Dusty and I even talked about maybe coming back one day to rent one of those cabins for a weekend, just to soak in the history a little longer. The museum was our big surprise. We hadn't realized Tannehill was tied so deeply to Civil War history until we stepped inside. Dusty and I split up, wandering in our own directions, each caught up in the artifacts. As a military veteran myself, and with Dusty's background as a Navy brat, we both felt the weight of it in different ways. We spent more time here than anywhere else in the park. Honestly, the only disappointment? No gift shop. I had my heart set on a magnet, and Dusty and I both wanted lapel pins for the Alabama travel dolls she sewed for us. Yeah, ours are dressed in peanut costumes, each covered in pins from every stop. Behind the museum, we explored more ruins of the irons, stone foundations, and machinery remains, but not the towering furnaces themselves. Those, somehow, we completely missed. Later, we hopped in the truck and drove deeper into the park, where we found the old church and cemetery. Both of us love places like that. Quiet, weathered, sacred in our own way. Dusty always jokes she's obsessed with dead people. For me, it's about standing in the presence of names and dates carved in stone, remembering people who'd otherwise be forgotten. Now you might notice something missing from our footage: the furnaces. Yep, the very stone giants Tannehill is most famous for. We had expected to see furnaces early in the day at Sloss, but it was closed. At Tannehill, we got so caught up in wandering cabins, the museum, and the church and cemetery that I completely missed them. Apparently Dusty had learned they were there, but forgot to clue me in. So we didn't see them during this visit. Later that day at Briarfield State Park, Dusty practically shouted, "We finally found a furnace. We've been looking for them all day." So yes, we did end the day with a furnace, but not the Tannehill ones. Guess that's just one more reason to come back and do a proper furnace hunt next time. And next week I'll share the furnace we finally found at Briarfield. Now Tannehill is at peace. Its 1,500 acres hold walking trails, a working grist mill, a blacksmith shop, and more than 40 cabins relocated from around the state. It's not just a memorial, it's a living museum. The furnaces themselves are considered some of the best preserved in the South, a testament to both the industry and the lives that built them. We didn't catch them this time, but that just means we've got the perfect excuse to come back. Walking these grounds is strange and moving all at once. The air is quiet, but you can almost feel a hum beneath it, as though the stones themselves still remember. Tannehill Historic State Park is a place of contradictions: innovation and forced labor, war and silence, documented history and whispered legend. We came here by accident, but left with one of our favorite stops of the trip. And that's the magic of road travel. The best destinations are often the detours. So what do you think? Does a place like Tannehill need ghost stories to be haunted, or does the sheer weight of its past leave enough of a mark? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for wandering with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next adventure. We'll see you down the road.